This Saturday would be a really good time for the Florida State pass rush to finally show up.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, and today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda. Move and be moved. We're going to talk about the four biggest games on the ACC slate for this weekend. Virginia has the opportunity to pull off another. It'll be an upset despite the fact that they are the ranked team against an unranked opponent. They'll try to pull off an upset at Louisville. We'll see who's worse or who's not as bad between Clemson and UNC this weekend. Syracuse at SMU, very interesting because if Steve Angeli was quarterbacking, I'd probably be picking Syracuse. Without him, not so sure. But Kenton, let's start with Miami at Florida State. And the reason why I mentioned Florida State's pass rush is for most of the week, we've really been focusing on Miami defensively against Tommy Castellanos, against Gus Malzahn's offense. But there's something for Florida State that I think is worth noting here to start this season is the Florida State Seminoles, according to Pro Football Focus, are the 95th graded pass rush in the country. It's not good. And Florida State currently has 0 defensive linemen with a pass rushing grade over 70, which is like barely a passing grade. If they're 3-3, 3-5 defense, they usually only generate pressure when they're blitzing. They don't generate pressure with their front line. That's probably going to have to change this weekend against Miami's offensive line.
Well, not necessarily. And let me tell you why. The 3-3-5 is not just like blitzing is a kind of a you do it here and there. No, blitzing is the norm. Sending somebody is the norm. So they may not need to generate more pressure in and of themselves without help because 9 times out of 10, you know, as an NC State guy, I covered Tony Gibson and his iteration of the 3-3-5 for years at NC State. And one thing I can tell you, it's not the norm to have guys that are superstars that can get it done on that edge, but it does take your defense to a whole nother level if you can do that in the 3-3-5. So it's kind of that question of, can the dogs get home by hook or by crook, by scheme or by matchup man-to-man, I'm better than you. However you want to do it, they just have to get home. Because if you let Carson Beck sit back there, pat the ball, look around, make a sandwich. Oh, look, CeCe's over there still blocking. Great job. Oh, look, Big Hooker's over there doing his thing too. Let me go ahead and throw the ball down the field. Now, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble because this this Miami receiving core has been one of the beautiful surprises of the ACC. Nobody coming into the season, including Donno, could have predicted that they would have played as well as they have. And yet they have shown up and shown out to a ridiculous degree. So I think the biggest task from Florida State is not just defensive linemen show up better. It's anybody. If your number is called on the dog pattern, get your tail to that 11. You got to get home.
No, you're right, because no matter who it is, they still have the 95th pass rush grade in the country out of about 133 teams, which is not very good. So, you know, no matter who it is, they haven't been getting to opposing quarterbacks. But, I mean, in this game, Kenton, I really think, for the Florida State side, they are going to basically try to out-scheme to, compensate for Miami's trench play. Because the way that I see it is, I look at football as 11 individual matchups at a time. And you would expect man for man, not to say every single Miami player is better than every single Florida State player, not what I'm saying, but you would expect Miami to win the better part of the one-on-one matchups, especially in the trenches. Where I think Florida State has the opportunity to win this game is when it comes to their creative offensive play calling. If Miami is not ready for what Tommy Castellanos and Gus Malzahn have to offer, and if Florida State wins the turnover battle. I know it's cliche to say it, but I think if turnovers are equal, if it's 0-0 or 1-1 or whatever, I think Miami can win this game without winning the turnover margin. I don't think Florida State can. I think Florida State has to win that to win this game.
I 1,000% agree with you there. And I think another place where you talk about scheming and why that's important for Florida State, I think Florida State has the better head coach in terms of his best against Mario's best, in terms of who I think in head coaching situations, who's better. I would say Norvell. The problem is Norvell's worst to Mario's worst, they're about neck and neck. And he's facing a talent deficit. That's just the reality. Miami is the most talented team in this football game. So you need to do things to overcome that. That scheming that you talk about, all of that motion and misdirection that they have going on, it needs to work. It needs to work, because if you put Mesidor and Bain in situations where they can just go tee off, go hunt. If you put CC Malinois in situations where he knows, oh, this guy right in front of me is the only guy I got to worry about blocking, great. That guy is eliminated. He's done. He said they don't have anybody that I would say consistently can stand up to CC and say, oh, yeah, you thought you were that guy. I'm actually that guy. I don't think they have that on their roster, but I think that the goal for Florida State should be, we're going to out-scheme this team. We're going to out-prepare this team. And again, if you end up in a tight game, that favors Florida State. That is just the honest-to-God truth here, because if you look at who Miami has been all year, other than Notre Dame, have they been in any tight game situations for the most part this year?
Not really. I mean, things were kind of tight in the third quarter against Florida, but yeah, I mean, Notre Dame they were tied 24-24 late in the fourth, so that was the one.
So with Florida State, you could say a similar thing in terms of they haven't played a ton of tight games either, outside of when they lost, but you learn a ton of lessons in that loss, and it's so fresh and it's so recent, it kind of gives you a different feel. If Norvell said this is going to be an emotional game, you know what plays into that emotion? When it's tight late. That plays into that. And the more emotional team could get a boost that the more business-like team does not have. However, if the more business-like team can withstand the first punch, if they can withstand that first emotional flurry that Florida State's going to come with, Miami will be fine. But like you said, that turnover battle means a lot. That turnover battle and keeping it close. I would say those are the two keys for Florida State, because I don't think Florida State has a type of team that can blow them out. But I think if you keep it close, you win the turnover margin, you can find yourself on top in this one.
I mean, the game that I envision, does involve Miami making enough defensive stops and forcing enough third downs that Florida State is not going to go off offensively. I think in a close game, if Miami preferably has a close lead, I say preferably as the host of Locked On Canes is why I would use that sort of language. I think that Miami can lean on their running game to eat clock and close the game out late. So I'm going to have Miami 31-23 in this one. How do you see it finishing?
Yeah, Donno, I got a very, very similar score to you. I think Florida State comes out very high energy, very much so riding off that wave of emotion, riding off that wave of anger. But I think that Miami is able to withstand their first punch, come out, regroup, and win this game handily just by war of attrition, bit by bit, wearing them down, leaning on them more and more as this game goes on. Just going to keep leaning. And I think Florida State loses this one 34-24.
Pretty close. You've actually got a bigger score than I do. When we come back, Syracuse has a really, really important game on the road at SMU. And I would say it's equally important for SMU. I mean, Syracuse had a tough conference loss last week. SMU has done terribly against the Big 12, but this is their conference opener. So the Mustangs are going to try to repeat some of that success that they had last year. And we also have to talk about two teams that have just been absolutely spiraling so far this year, Clemson and UNC. They go head-to-head in Chapel Hill. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward, overtime from that Virginia at Florida State game. I mean, tough loss for FSU, monumental win for UVA. It got them ranked for the first time since 2016. And I know field rushings are controversial, but you could see the pure emotions, the pure celebration in Charlottesville. The end of that game was insane. Chandler Morris and company, Tony Elliott, who was on the hot seat heading into this year, the Virginia coach. I mean, that was an incredible upset win last Friday night, and that moved the game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Folks, it is time now. It's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Well, we're going to find out this weekend if Ruben Hurricane Bain can stay on a streak for Miami when he's going to try to stop Thomas Castellanos and company. Last time we saw Ruben Bain, 10 quarterback pressures, 7 tackles, a sack, a TFL. He came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching Ruben Bain week after week, that performance wasn't a fluke. He's on a streak. And just like Ruben Bain has delivered for the Hurricanes, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone host Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. All right, Kenton. So let's take a look. And by the way, just to put a bow on Miami at Florida State, Hurricanes are favored by 4.5 points. Kenton's got Miami winning by 10. I've got Miami winning by 8. But let's go on now to Syracuse, 3-2 overall, 1-1 in the ACC, visiting SMU, 2-2 overall, 0 for so far in the ACC. This is going to be SMU's conference debut. I've got the Mustangs winning at home, Kenton, and it has a lot to do with a couple of important matchups. Number one, Syracuse, I know they've had another week to kind of regroup and rally, but they didn't look like the same team with Ricky Collins at quarterback. I didn't expect that much of a drop-off from Steve Angeli, given how close their quarterback competition allegedly was, but they didn't look like the same offense last week when they got blown out by Duke. And another, important matchup here is SMU is going to want to run the football. They've had success. Syracuse's rushing defense has been god-awful this year. So I think those are the matchups that are going to decide this one. And on the SMU side, maybe Syracuse can make some plays in the passing game because SMU's defensive backfield has been a little bit problematic. But I trust Kevin Jennings a lot more than I trust Ricky Collins. And I trust SMU's running game to get on track. So I've got the Mustangs getting their first conference win and their first opportunity and getting off the schneid.
Yeah, they surely will. And Donno, I know that you and a lot of other people think the QB competition was very close. So therefore, they must be closest quarterbacks. They left the spring. Because if I'm correct here, when did Steve Angeli transfer over there?
It was after spring.
It was after spring. They left the spring and said, we still need to go get a quarterback. They lost Trevor Pena, one of the best slot guys and really best receivers overall in the nation, and said, you know where we need help? Quarterback. Why is that? Why is that? So even if it was a close competition, to me, a guy that you think is good enough to play and be effective, you're not going out and spending time and effort and money in the portal for a quarterback if you feel comfortable with what you already have in that room. It was clear they were not comfortable, regardless of how close the battle ultimately ended up being. I'm not super shocked by the lack of performance by Ricky Collins in game one. He may be able to bounce back. I doubt it. I think SMU wins handily. I think they get their get-right game. And, as much as I like Fran Brown and company, this is just – the scheduling alone was tough. But then you add in your starting quarterback being out for the year, and this feels like a very bad, no good, terrible year.
Do they win by more than 17 points? The spread is 17.5. That's a very, very big number. I think they win. I'm not sure they cover. I would actually, if I'm betting the spread, I'm betting Syracuse plus 17.5.
If I was betting spread, I would take Cuse. If I'm taking money line, give me SMU. I think SMU wins straight up. I don't think they cover 17. This feels like a bad beats game. This feels like the one. This feels like the one where it's like they lead by 19 for most of the game, and then Syracuse is driving. They get stopped, and they take a field goal because they know, like, oh, the game's over anyway, and we'd have to score 3 touchdowns if we went for it. Let's just take our field goal, get right church, and let's go home. And they end up losing by 16 despite trailing by 19 for a majority of it.
Yeah, so we have SMU winning, not necessarily covering. Let's move on to Louisville, Kentucky, Kenton. We got UVA on the road at Louisville. This one, I'm having a hard time with this one because I don't feel great about what Louisville's put on tape so far. Their offensive line has struggled. Their running backs have both been banged up. Isaac Brown and Duke Watson, I think maybe they've been elevated from questionable to probable, but they're still not completely healthy. Now, UVA obviously is coming off, a season-defining win so far, but they head into Louisville as underdogs for this one. I think the difference in this game, Kenton, could be Louisville's defensive line and their pass rush led by Clev Lubin and A.J. Green. Like, I think those might be the players who can make the difference against UVA. And maybe if we do get just a couple of big carries, because sometimes it only takes Isaac Brown one opening and one opportunity to get off and make a big play like he did against James Madison. So I think I do understand why Louisville is favored at home. But after what UVA did last Friday night, nothing would shock me.
Donno, let me ask you a question, okay? I mean this from a very sincere standpoint. Miller Moss and company on this offense have played the likes of Eastern Kentucky, James Madison, Bowling Green, and Pitt. How many interceptions do you think he has on the year so far?
I know how many he has. He's got 5 in 4 games.
Well, the stats on ESPN are saying 3, but either way you cut it or slice it, you threw 2 interceptions against Eastern Kentucky. The running game is struggling for a multitude of reasons. Either way you cut it or slice it.
I'm sorry, you are right. 3 interceptions. That's my bad.
But Donno, either way you cut it or slice it, I'm not trusting that Miller Moss goes out and plays 6 straight halves of amazing football. That second half against Pitt, chef's kiss, no notes. Great ball, brother. Great ball. I'm not trusting him to put together more of that with a running game that is not looking like what it should be. Wrong team favored. Give me the hooves.
Oh, man. And that number, by the way, let me pull that up just so we know. So Louisville's favored by 6.5. So you got the who's winning and covering.
Who's win, who's cover, roll, who's roll. Now, I'm just joking. I don't know if they do anything like that. But I got the who's in this one. I think that Virginia goes ahead and gets themselves a win here because, again, Louisville always has that 1 or 2 games a year where they forget how to play football. This is primed to be that game.
All right, well, let's talk when we come back about the historic coaching matchup. First time since 1993 that we've had a multiple-time college national championship head coach against a multiple-time Super Bowl winning head coach. It was Joe Paterno and Bill Walsh the last time this happened back in the 90s. And by the way, Walsh won that meeting. We'll see if Belichick can pull it off this time around. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Oh, folks, we are proudly brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This training is reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools to help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. The swivel screen is a game changer. You can go from running on the Tread Plus to strength training without missing a beat. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listeners. We headed to a big weekend of games, of course, headlined by Miami at Florida State, but there are other interesting ones. I feel like there's going to be a lot of people either like hate watching or spite watching Clemson at UNC for a number of different reasons, either people who don't like Dabo or people who are rooting for Belichick to fail. I mean, someone is going to get off the schneid this weekend, Kenton. And so, all right, I look at these two teams in two situations. Both teams have underperformed. Clemson's offense is unrecognizable compared to last season. The defensive line, which almost everyone graded number one in the country, has not shown up to nearly that level to this point. North Carolina has been an absolute mess on both sides of the football, especially offense if they keep going with Gio Lopez. But, Kenton, the reason I am strongly leaning to Clemson this time around is at least this core of players, they have 80% of their roster returned from last season, and their core of coaches, which is, not completely the same from last year, but maybe on paper, even an upgrade at defensive coordinator with Tom Allen there, that at least we have seen Clemson in this form. I'll let you make your point because you made a weird face at me. At least we've seen Clemson with this group, 80% of this roster performing last season and prior seasons. Whereas North Carolina, all we have seen is the chaos that they put on film so far this year. Clemson's coming off a bye week. I would imagine we're going to get a better showing from Clemson than the last time we saw them a couple of weeks ago against Syracuse. So I'm going to think the Tigers are going to win and probably win big in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, all that returning talent, throw it out. All of that continuity on the coaching staff, throw it out. We have two teams that are in absolute test. Here's why I say throw it out, Donno. Because have they played like a team that returned 84% of their roster from last year?
No, but at least I know, at least I've seen it happen with this core before. That's the only thing.
Here's where I'm going with this, Donno.
Okay.
All that you can throw out, okay? And Donno, you're a Miami guy, meaning you went to Miami. You're from the Miami area, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you've seen some football teams that are extremely poorly coached, but they have wonderful athletes. Super athletes, they're just super poorly coached, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if two teams are playing each other, both of which seem to have similar struggles in terms of their coaching, getting together the cohesion, but one of them has a bunch of D1 guys and the other one has they got some talent, but maybe one guy goes on to play for FIU, everybody else get ready to go work at the Ford plant. If that's the case, which team would you pick to win?
The first one, the one with the talent.
Same. That's the answer here. It's the one with the talent. While they have struggled against almost everybody so far this season, so has UNC. Anybody other than Charlotte, who, with all due respect to Biff Poggi, he left the cupboards very, very barren. I mean, what a mess. And Richmond, the mighty Richmond Spiders, which if I was to tell you, Richmond, where is Richmond? Most people would not be able to guess it off the back of their head because there are multiple Richmonds. Is it Richmond, California?
It's not Virginia?
Richmond, Virginia? It is Virginia.
Okay.
But a lot of people would say, which one is it? Is it Richmond, California, Richmond, Virginia? So I say all that to say, I believe the Dabo and company get it done, but just because the talent difference is overwhelming. This is a talent difference like it was with Troy, to the point where even if you see UNC jump out and punch them in the mouth early, the talent will always prevail at some point in time. And I think that's what's going to happen in this one.
All right, so the follow-up question here, because again, this one's got a big spread. Clemson is favored by 14.5 points on the road. Now, again, a lot more talent, like you say, but do you trust Clemson, who has struggled against everyone on their schedule, including Troy, who they had to come back from 16-0 to beat? Do you trust Clemson to win this game by more than 2 touchdowns?
In the words of the Levert family at a Brugger's Bagel, not enough spread. Clemson covers that handily. They have no problem at all covering that one. I think they get it done easily.
Oh, man, I love it. All right, so some good action coming up this weekend. We'll talk about all of it when we come out of the weekend. We're also going to be keeping our eyes on Duke on the road at Cal. Okay, so real quick, Duke at Cal, because I know we got the Duke fans listening. We got the Calgorithm listening. We talked about this game the other day. I have my reservations just about JKS against a Manny Diaz defense. That's the reason I'm picking Duke. to cover. It's just a 2.5-point spread. So I think Duke is going to win and cover. But do you think we're in for a magical late night in Cal, a 10:30 p.m. Eastern time game?
You know, Donno, Duke fans don't deserve a team this good. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. They don't show up. They don't care. They're not invested enough. And yeah, Duke fans, I'm talking to you. I don't care if you come in these comments upset or whatever. Your football team may not be as storied as your basketball team, but show the hell up for these boys. They're balling. They're objectively balling. One of the greatest runs Duke has ever been on, and y'all can't be bothered to show up. What an embarrassment. Calgorithm, on the other hand, best fans, some of the best fans in the ACC, definitely best fans in the Bay Area in the ACC. Sorry, Stanford, and I'm sorry to my CEO, who also is a Stanford grad. Love you, brother. But Cal has by far some of the best fans in the conference and in the nation. With that being said, the fans are not going to be on the field playing this game. They're not going to be on the field playing this game. I would love to say I believe in Jake has to do it, but I really look at that San Diego State game as a game where I ask, okay, 3 games of film is generally the standard for understanding somebody's tendencies, their habits, what they want to do, and they were absolutely shellacked by San Diego State. Now, granted, they bounced back against BC. Whose coaching tree is Bill O'Brien from again? Out of curiosity,
from that rotten Belichick coaching tree.
Ain't produced nothing but bad fruit. But the reality is, I think the JKS and company, I think they keep this one extremely close. I just think they lose on the last second field goal or something along those lines. Again, no upset would make me happier. Even if Virginia had to lose to Louisville in order to make this one happy, I'm fine with that exchange. I really am, because I want to see Cal pull off this upset.
Oh, we'll leave it at that. We appreciate everyone for making Locked On ACC your first listen. Make sure you smash that like button, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods, on YouTube. We'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.